Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest. He's an author. He's got a large social media following. He's the author of A Flicker in the Water, and he's got a new book coming out. He's going to talk all about it. And I'm really excited to connect with authors, influencers such as himself. He's been referred by another previous podcast guest, Rhonda Parker Taylor. She was also a very popular guest. So, Bob, welcome.
Hello, Dr. Lou. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. And please, all my friends call me Chris, so do the same.
All right, Chris. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I know we had connected through mutual connection. So tell people about your background and your story, and we'll get started.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I moved to Florida. I'll tell you a little more about Pennsylvania. I was a college ball player there in the 1980s, and every spring I used to travel down to Florida for spring training. So one year I decided, I want to come down here and make Florida my permanent home. The 70 degrees in February looked really good. So I came down in my 20s and I started a small business here. I settled in the Panhandle between Destin and Panama City, and I opened up a small business. It was a pretzel store. And a few years after that, I started fishing all the time because the place where I'm at is known as the world's luckiest fishing village, Destin, Florida. And I named the boat the Twister after the pretzel Twister store. So I started fishing every day. And after about 15 years, I had a lot of stories I thought people might enjoy, and I turned them into a book.
I love that. Florida is actually one of my the beautiful beaches, the gorgeous weather, the nice people, and so kind of talk about this. And I love how you basically found your passion for, and then you talk about 3 tips for seizing passion for happiness, and kind of talk about that and how it relates to your book.
Well, I always loved fishing, even from the time I was a little kid. I used to fish in the lakes and the rivers and things. And I don't know, something I always loved. I just loved being out in the wilderness, connecting with nature. And I don't know, there's just something about fish that I liked. I don't know why, but I just did. And I used to fish in New Jersey, even though I was in Pennsylvania. A couple times a year, my dad would take me to New Jersey and we would fish there because he
Yeah.
grew up in Cuba. And he grew up on the water. So we would go to New Jersey and fish. And we only did it a couple times a year, and then it was when I got to Florida that I really started to fish all the time, and I loved it. I'm a hardcore all in guy for when it comes to the ocean.
That's I know a lot of my colleagues, they love the surf and they love the beach, and some people love nature, the woods, nature baths, and so just kind of what is your happy place? And my stepbrother is, he loved fishing, like he just loved being on the water, the boats, and just like the breeze and the sun. And
Hmm.
me, I always got nauseous and just threw up. So I'm more I'm more of a ski guy, but
Yeah.
yeah. So kind of talk about your first book, which it's a book of poems called Eagle Claws for Freedom's Cause, and kind of talk about that, and then what motivated you to talk about A Flicker in the Water.
Well, that one was more about what was going on in our country during the weird period with COVID and all that stuff, and 2020 and everything. So that one's a little different. The Flicker in the Water one is more personal. It's more my own stories. I wrote A Flicker in the Water for anybody to enjoy, whether they're an experienced fisherman or not. In fact, I've had a lot of people tell me you don't even have to like fishing to enjoy the book. And that makes me feel good because I consciously set out to write it that way. And I
Yeah.
made it too for kids like 7 on up to that they can really enjoy.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then what is and then it's actually got it's also got really what has been the kind of the feedback on the first book, and then how did you take that and use it for your second book?
Well, the feedback I got was really good. I had college professors always tell me that I was a good writer, but I never took it seriously. And I said, and then many years later, I took that first one and then I turned it into the second one. I don't know if the audience will want to see the cover, but that's what the cover looks like. That's a Goliath grouper. That's the biggest grouper in the grouper family. Yeah, and but believe it or not, they're a shallow water fish. They can be caught in less than 100 feet of water underneath bridges and pilings and stuff. Here in Florida, they're very prevalent now. There was a
Yeah.
time when they weren't, but they've made a great comeback. And yeah, so yeah, I just enjoy writing, and I'm actually writing another book right now. This one is about the Major League Baseball franchises, and I've got and football poems.
Yeah. I love that. Um, what kind of talk about the second book now? Kind of what are the key points? Key main ideas, and we'll dive more into it.
Well, most of the stories are nonfiction. A lot of them are my own, not all of them, but a lot of them are. We just talk about chasing blue marlin and chasing swordfish and chasing tuna in the Gulf of Mexico, as well as bottom fish, red snappers, groupers, amberjacks. I even gave one of the amberjacks a nickname. This amberjack was an old fish. He had wrinkly skin when he came up. After we fought him for like 45 minutes, we didn't know what it was. He came up belly up with bubbling in the water, and it was an amberjack. And he had just a blue eye that looked like a marble with no pupils, so I named him Marble Eye.
Oh.
Yeah, and actually, the title for the book, "A Flicker in the Water," was inspired by a tuna that
Uh,
we were fighting in the rigs in Louisiana. They have offshore oil rigs where the fish congregate around them. They love the rigs. So we were battling a tuna there, and just the reflection and the colors and the vibrancy of the water made me think, oh, a flicker in the water. Although I didn't think of it at the time. That came years later.
yeah. What is so kind of when you this is kind of for my own interest because I've always seen these channels where they're talking about sport fishing and then they basically catch these big and then for competition but then they let it go and then
Yeah.
some yeah kind of talk about like sport fishing and then also like sometimes they fishermen catch the fresh catch and then sell it to restaurants or
Mhm.
stores kind of talk about that.
Well, we've done some of both. We used to catch a lot of fish, and there's a lot of fish markets here that will take your fish, and then they distribute it to the restaurants and stuff. Um, we did a lot of that, and we also did a lot of release. Nowadays, all you have to do is measure the girth of the fish, and they estimate the weight and all that, and you don't even have to bring the fish back to a taxidermy like it used to be. They can duplicate it with a mold, so it preserves the fish and it makes it for a sustainable restocking of the fishery. We did that several times. That's really popular with blue marlins, especially.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then, and then also in Florida, a lot of the fishermen basically there's restaurants where they will, you catch your fish and they'll actually, slice it up and they'll, cook it for you. Really interesting. It's probably fresher, probably more healthier than just eating at a restaurant. But
Yeah, I took
so
one time we in Isla Morada. This is in the Keys. I caught a 40-pound mahi mahi one time, and I took it to a restaurant there, and they cooked it up. They sliced it for me. They made it in 5 different ways: grilled, fried, blackened, and it's seared. And it was great. It was really good.
yeah. Um, what's been the reception of a flicker in the water and kind of any feedback from readers and it's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's got a bunch of reviews there. It's got a 4.6 rating, which is really good. Most of the reviews have been outstanding, which really makes me feel good. And
uh,
like I said, people don't even have to like fishing to enjoy the book. And I'm glad when I hear that. Mariel Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter from The Old Man and the Sea, wrote the foreword for my book, and she really liked it.
yeah.
She said it spoke to her with a deep sense of appreciation. That meant a lot coming from her.
Yeah. On your website, which is interesting, is like you've got a lot of fun facts and kind of what is your favorite fish and why? I know because it seems like you have a deep connection to the sea and some fish actually from what I can gather they have different personalities and
Mhm.
kind of what is your favorite?
My favorite fish to catch it, is probably about, say, a 30-pound mahi or up on a spinning rod. The spinning
Uh,
rod is a rod that spins around it in a circular motion, and it's so much fun. They see them jump out of the water and they turn all kinds of colors and they fight like you wouldn't believe. A mahi mahi might be the strongest, and the dolphin fish. In Hawaii they call them mahi, but that fish may be the strongest fighting fish pound for pound in the ocean. They're incredible. Their strength
uh-huh.
is unreal. So like a 30-pound fish on a spinning rod at mahi is my favorite by far.
Uh-huh. Interesting. So the next question is, like I see these, these boats that go out for deep sea fishing, and let's say they catch a, big catch, right? And what are some things like, because, you're fighting against this, you know, big organism. So like, how are you, like, what supplies, equipments, and then I know like sometimes if you have like a large catch, you have to actually have to have like certain like actually machinery to actually reel the fish in.
Well, some people use electric reels. I've never done that. I like catching them. I like the feel of the fish on the rod. Uh, they're a lot of fun. You do, if you're going to catch big fish, though, you need heavy duty tackle. I mean, I have fished with everything from small little light bait rods to heavy duty, marlin reels. But you do, depending on what you're after, you could, there's light duty and heavy duty and everything in between. Now, for bottom fishing, which we used to do a lot of here, we used what they call 3, 6, or 9 aughts. They call them. We call them that. And what you do is you drop your bait all the way to the bottom. You get like a 9-inch, what they call a circle hook, and you
Uh-huh.
drop it all the way to the bottom. And you wait for the red snapper, the grouper, or the amberjack. Sometimes even a shark. You'll bite on the bottom, and as soon as you get that bite, you start cranking like crazy, bringing that thing in, because if you let the fish get momentum going the other way, you won't catch him. He'll get in a hole or he'll wrap himself around a shipwreck or whatever, and he'll be gone, and you have to cut your line and you lose the fish. But if you can get that fish head turning your way and coming towards you, you'll have a better success at catching them. And they're a lot of fun to catch too. When you feel that initial tug on the line, I mean, the adrenaline rush is unreal.
Yeah. Um, the other thing is, a lot of people, like, for example, they like to, so I know like people that like to travel to certain destinations for like the scuba, or, for the,
Mm-hmm.
and some people, like, for example, looks like you like to travel and, deep sea fishing. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the popular spots for fishing? I know you talk about Puerto Rico and some
Yeah.
of the best places you've been to.
Well, all the Caribbean is really good for offshore, big game fish, marlin, mahi mahi, wahoos. They all travel around those same areas. They migrate all throughout the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, the Bahamas, the Keys of Florida, all the way down to, Barbados down there. All those areas are really good for those type of fish. They're constantly moving. They need a lot of water flow through their gills, to get the oxygen that they need to survive. So they're always moving. Now, the other fish we talked about, groupers and snappers, and then they just mostly sit on the bottom. But the sport fish, the ones that you see in all the tournaments and stuff, those are constantly put. They call them pelagic fish because they're always moving. And anywhere in the Caribbean is really good. There's a lot of currents that bring a lot of food for them to eat. In fact, I talk about the currents in the book about the Gulf of Mexico. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew that we had in the Gulf of Mexico what's called the loop current. It's a
Oh,
continuous flow of water that comes up from the Caribbean. It's warm water, and it runs up into the Gulf at 6 miles an hour, one of the fastest moving currents in the world. And it's
uh-huh.
150 miles wide, and it's 5,000 feet deep. I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
it wraps between Cuba and Key West, and then connects with the Gulf Stream and goes up the Atlantic. Tunas love those things. They tunas will ride that thing all the way up to Nova Scotia and all the way around to Europe. Hmm.
Yeah,
A
really
couple of
interesting. I
other
love your.
things too. I learned in the book actually, the Mediterranean Sea there between Morocco and Spain, where you get a lot of these pelagic fish. Also, there's only one entry in there, and it's only 9 miles wide. I didn't realize that. That's
Yeah,
amazing to me. It's
yeah,
just such a large body of water, but there's only one way in and out of there, and it's only 9 miles. I don't know how fish get in and out of there.
yeah. um, yeah, I love your enthusiasm, and I can tell your passion. One of those things is talking about just freedom, emotional freedom, and then
Hmm.
kind of talk about. So one thing is with climate change. How
Hmm.
is that affecting fish? fishing? Kind of go. How do you have to adjust, and what are you seeing?
I think the our climate has been evolving and changing, from the beginning. It goes through cycles. One of them is a hurricane cycle. You might have periods of 50, 60 years without many hurricanes, and then all of a sudden you might get into a different cycle because of different currents and different temperatures and stuff, and they like an assembly line, one right after another. So you might go through another period of 10 or 15 or 20 years where they're very common. We went through that here in Florida in the early 2000s. Boy, we were getting like a couple of hurricanes a year. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I wrote about some of those in the book. I mean, once you see one of those things, it's something you can never forget.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another interesting thing, too, I learned in the book. I did not realize the Sea of Galilee is a freshwater body. It's a lake.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was part of the Mediterranean Sea because of the word sea,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
freshwater lake in northern Israel. I didn't know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I love how you intertwine interesting facts and tidbits. And you're kind of like you're a subject matter expert in this particular area. Um, so one thing is, I remember like in Houston, kind of we're a Gulf Coast city, and then like kind of in the early 2010s, we were getting like 4 or 5 hurricane alerts a year, and
Yeah.
now it's like drought, like it's droughts and
Yeah.
like also like extreme freezing cold weather that we're not ready for. So
Well, I know in Houston, you're not too far from Galveston, and Galveston has had some devastating hurricanes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that Galveston, though, the Houston, where the water's real deep over there. So you guys get some nice fish there in Galveston. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is, like, for example, like crawfish and crabs,
Hmm.
oysters, with
Uh-huh.
the temperature rising, it causes, kind of a change in the flora or change in the species. So
Yeah.
are you seeing that with fishing as well?
It could. Every once in a while, you see what they call a red tide. Red tide will be a lot of flora, a lot of different things in the water that will actually harm the fish. So
Mm,
you sometimes you'll see fish belly up in the water because of all this bacteria.
mm.
But I'll tell you one thing though, nature has a way of replenishing and cleaning itself up.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Do you remember the Horizon oil spill back in the 2011? I think it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right there in Louisiana.
yeah.
I think the currents from that loop current that I talked about helped
Uh-huh,
disperse a lot of that oil in the water and helped usher it in and out of the Gulf. So it kind of
uh-huh,
cleaned itself. I think nature has a way of doing that.
uh-huh.
It's not just a stagnant body of water. Things are always moving and changing in the atmosphere and in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, Mother Nature is very resilient because
Yeah.
yeah, I remember in COVID when everybody was forced indoors, like basically like the pollution just kind of it was evaporated. It was like gone, and then like all the squirrels and
Hmm.
the geese and all that were out like happy. I think it's amazing like how destructive our we as a human society are. We need to preserve Mother Nature, and so
Yeah, I'm all for conservation. I like catch and release when you can do it. I like to eat fish, but I like to catch and release too. It actually feels good a lot of times when you release the fish.
yeah,
It because he's there for another day.
yeah, you get to take your photo and then let them
Yeah,
go. So,
yeah.
uh, interesting. So how can people find the book? I'm sure it's on Amazon. I'm gonna check it out as well and leave a good
It's on
review.
Amazon. At my website, flickerinthewater.com. There's all kinds of videos there. There's links to Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And this is what the cover looks like.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
I've checked it
um,
out.
yeah.
It's got a lot of good Amazon reviews, and it looks like it's doing very well for for first year in publishing.
Yeah. I'm really happy with it. I'm excited. I'm talking to a high school here locally in a
Yeah,
few days. We here in Destin. We have the only accredited fishing class in the whole U.S. So, and they invited me in to talk to them. So I'm
that's
really
cool.
excited about that. Yeah, yeah,
Nice, nice. Well, excellent. Well, for all the audience out there listening, Bob for coming on. He's self-published book. I really enjoyed talking, just learning about different things, and all of his resources will be in the links and show notes. And thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it.